Welcome to the Master Cars Pro channel. Today we will talk about the problems and weaknesses of Nissan Qashqai. While plenty of Qashqai owners in our survey were very happy with their cars, we also came across a surprisingly large number who had a whole catalog of problems. Having reviewed this, we'll try and give you some pointers on things you might like to look out for when inspecting used examples. Early on in this MK2 Designs Live, Nissan issued a recall for the braking system. Make sure that the car you're looking at had that done. Known problems with this model relate to problems with the climate control system. It may need regassing and poorly fitted door seals. He came across a number of problems with warning lights on the dash appearing erroneously, principally a system fault warning and the handbrake light. What else? Well, one owner rather distressingly had the 1.2-liter engine of his car blow at just 7,500 miles. Another had a gearbox oil leak, and still another experienced an oil leak from the timing cover in the engine, which then contaminated the timing belt. One owner heard a rattle from beneath the bonnet, which turned out to be a loose airbox. One owner noticed a noise in the area of the driver's window, which turned out to be down to a loose mechanism in the electric window. Another owner noticed a vibration from the engine compartment, which turned out to be down to the air inlet fitting. We also came across owners who said that the autonomous emergency braking system didn't work properly, and in an accident situation. One buyer also had a problem with a faulty rear seatbelt catch and a seat adjustment catch that fell apart. There were also reports of sat navs freezing and fuse box covers popping out. If there's one thing that the original MK1 Qashqai model is remembered for, is the way that it revolutionized the dynamic responses that keen drivers could expect from a car of this kind. And in this respect, not much changed with the second generation version. In other words, if you want a crossover model of this kind from this era, then this one remains the on-tarmac benchmark. Like all its like-minded rivals, this Nissan is aiming to offer everything people like about butch-looking SUVs in a more practical and affordable family hatch-shaped package, so you get the looks without any of the compromises you'll not want to make if you'll never go off-road. So curbs can be mounted, but you'll need to leave the Serengeti runoff fines through at the top of the range. There's the option of 4WD for muddy car parks or snowy driveways. At the wheel, it feels like a normal family hatch in which you simply sit a bit higher. Nice, but trying to persuade a car that looks and feels like an SUV to drive like a car is no easy task. After all, conventional logic suggests that the taller you make a vehicle, and this one's about 14 centimeters tall, than a Golf or Focus size family hatch, the more it'll roll. Still, Nissan's British Cranfield engineers clearly don't believe in conventional logic, because this model manages to deliver high stance and supple ride without thought. Responsive handling becoming a casualty in the process. A truly class-leading hatch, say word Focus, is still slightly better, of course, but it can offer this car's wider range of attributes, which were further improved for this generation model with a number of really innovative features. Let's start with the ride quality we've just mentioned. We feared that this might be a casualty of Nissan's cost-saving switch to a cheaper torsion beam suspension layout for this generation model rather than the previous high-tech multi-link rear end that in this MK2 range was limited to the pricey 4WD variant that only 5% of buyers chose. Fortunately, compensation comes in the form of a standard feed chassis control system that uses clever double piston dampers tuned to be as effective for high-speed highway driving as they are in soaking up the bumps and potholes around town. Tarmac tiers of this kind are also ironed away by a standard active ride control system that subtly adds the brakes over bumps that might otherwise cause the body to pitch about. Does it work? In a word, yes. We have not come across a better riding crossover from this era than this, or a quieter one on the move. Is there a more refined, affordable family car on the market than this from this era? Off the cuff, we're struggling to think of one. We certainly can't name you another crossover that is easy to drive fast as this Qashqai. Aiding you in this is another clever standard bit of software, the active trace control system, which works through the turns to counter both understeer and wheel spin by lightly micro braking whichever front wheel is threatening to lose grip. As a result, the cars kept planted through the tightest corner and you're fired on from bend to bend. You'd perhaps be minded to attack such turns with a little more vigor if the steering was a touch more feelsome, but it's certainly an improvement over the old MK1 model thanks to a dual mode setup that changes the weighting of the electrically assisted rack when you switch from normal to the sport setting onto engines. In place of 30 volt 1.6 and 2.0 liter power plants foisted on the original version of the car, Nissan instead favored MK2 model buyers with a couple of far more efficient DIGT turbocharged units, 150 PS 1.6, and the variant that over 40% of customers chose 115 PS 1.2. Yes, you heard right. Here we have a two-tone crossover powered by an engine smaller in size than that of city cars. And yet, if you press the accelerator pedal, you'll feel generally reassured that were you asked, you'd be able to pull the skin off a rice pudding or punch your way out of the wet paper back in this thing. Granted, it's not something you'd impress anybody with on the drag strip at Santa Pot, but being able to get to 62 miles per hour in 11.3 seconds won't leave you worried about being caught napping in the cut and thrust of everyday motoring. If you're looking for a little more than that, then the alternative 150 PS 1.6 DIGT petrol unit ups your pulling power from 190 to 240 and offers rather more flexible day-to-day performance. Something you also get from the pair of DCI diesel units on offer, most customers likely to opt for the frugal 110 PS 1.5 liter variant, which makes 62 miles per hour in 12.4 seconds on the way and to 112 miles per hour. More pertinently for towers, this version's useful 260 of torque is able to boost the 1.2 liter petrol models rather feebly. 1200 kg brake trailer weight capacity to a more acceptable 1350 kgs. You'll do even better than that if you opt for the top diesel, the 130 PS 1.6 DCI, which can tow a brake trailer of up to 1800 kgs in weight of manual form, and when not hitched up can improve the 0 to 62 miles per hour sprint time to 10.5 seconds and the top speed to 118 miles per hour. We should point out that you'll need to opt for this 1.6 liter DCI power plant if you want your Qashqai fitted with either an automatic gearbox or four-wheel drive. That is an or, not an and. By the way, you can't have both, which seems a bit of a missed opportunity. The Xtronic auto transmission is one of those rubber belt driven CVT setups that are often are to drive smoothly and recklessly rev the engine when you've even the slightest need to push on. This one's far better than the norm, though more quick-witted than you'd expect, with steering wheel gear shift paddles and artificially created ratios into which the revs rise and fall as you power through the gearbox, just as you'd expect. That leaves only the all-mode 4x4i all-wheel drive system, which is much the same as it was on the previous generation model. Depending on your preference, this can be set in front wheel drive locked with drive split 50-50 to the front and rear, or left in auto to shuttle torque backwards and forwards as required. And certainly doesn't make this car into any kind of rotor. There's no significant ground clearance for a start, but it'd be nice to have in a snowy snap. Building a crossover vehicle is easy. Building one as good as this Nissan is a whole lot tougher, and it's a vehicle whose remit shifted ever so subtly in second generation form. The Qashqai couldn't fight tomorrow's battles. Looking quite so SUV, it needed to tone down, become sleeker, and yes, be a bit more like a conventional hatchback in look and feel. That is exactly what happened with the second generation version, a car from a brand that clearly knows its market. What didn't change in the transition from the MK1 model to the second generation design was that the original family crossover model remained the very best, a fine option for buyers not wanting to be saddled with front-of-the-mill hatches or people carriers, people not wanting the clunkiness and cost common even to smaller SUVs. Of course, by 2014, the Qashqai found itself with a much tougher set of rivals to deal with, but Nissan's product development did just enough to keep this model a step ahead of most of the chasing pack. True, this car could certainly still be a tad sharper to drive, but its handling was much improved over the previous version, and the ride and refinement are genuinely impressive, aided no doubt by the high-tech CMV chases disappointments that are few. Maybe the high price of 4WD and the lack of a 7-seater option this time around, but then those are issues you'll also find with most directly comparable rivals, cars that by and large struggling to match up this one. The Qashqai then remains a benchmark and a starting point for anyone buying in this segment. Well, if you are the owner of this car, then please describe the problems that you had to face during the operation of the car. Perhaps it is your feedback that'll help viewers when choosing a car. That's it for today. Thanks everyone for attention. It isn't much work for you to subscribe to the channel. See you soon.